We've been enjoying this somewhat of a deep dive, at least as time permits, into Tocqueville's classic work, Democracy in America, a work written following Tocqueville's 9-month journey in America, but one that still has very powerful echoes and resonances for us today. It defines the contours of American exceptionalism. It lays out the America that we're fighting for. It shows that when we want to make America great again, these are the principles of subsidiarity, of voluntary associations, of local self-government, of innovation, entrepreneurship, a revival of faith and family, a revival of a difference between the sexes, a simple recognition that the two sexes are not identical. All of this is right there in Tocqueville. Now, I want to talk in this concluding segment about Tocqueville's other book, because many people don't realize, well, Tocqueville did a bunch of other things. In fact, even his travel accounts weren't limited to America. He went to England, he went to Sicily, he wrote about Italy, he wrote about England, but his work on America, of course, is his most famous. But there's one other book by Tocqueville that is well worth reading, and it's called The Ancien Regime, the Old Regime, and the French Revolution. This is Tocqueville's thoughts about what's going on in France. And I want to single out just one idea in that book because it runs counter to the sort of idea that we have gotten now from Marx and so many people on the left, the idea that revolution is created by people who are impoverished. According to Marx, once oppression gets bad enough, once the proletariat or the working class is immiserated beyond a certain point, they can't take it anymore and they begin to revolt. Now, of course, this turns out to be Marxist claptrap. No working class anywhere in the world has revolted in this way, not from Marx's day to this day. So Tocqueville, in looking at France and looking at the French Revolution and looking at its aftermath, says he noticed something very interesting. The things leading up to the revolution were not getting worse. Tocqueville says they were actually getting better. What you had is a rise of material conditions, and the poor and the ordinary guy began to see that they had things now they didn't have before. But, says Tocqueville, even though their material condition was improving, their expectations outstripped their material gains. So their material gains might have been from 1 to 5, but their expectations were all the way to 10. And it's the distance between their achievements and their expectations that produces discontent. They become angry that they don't have more. They suddenly begin to believe that things that other people have are theirs by right. They feel, in a word, entitled. I think this is a very important insight for our own day. When I see a lot of these Black Lives Matter types, these Antifa types, these raging, discontented leftists on campus, they're often extremely well-fed. They're well-clothed. They drive nice cars. They live in mom's basement. Many of them don't even work. And yet they're extremely angry. They're angry not because they're impoverished. This is not some kind of immiserated working class. These are the spoiled brats. And the language of revolution comes very easily to these spoiled brats. Why? Because somehow, with all the stuff they believe that they are now crusaders, not just for others, but also for themselves. Why can't I get free college? Why can't I get this? And why can't I get that? I own a cell phone, but here recently I just saw Jim Acosta. Why can't we need to have Biden's infrastructure plan because I want to take the Acela fast train and have Wi-Fi from New York to Washington. So here you've got this chubby-faced, grown-up brat, Acosta, and I don't begrudge him wanting to go on a fast train. I just begrudge him wanting you and me, who are not on that train, to pay for his ticket. Why doesn't this guy who's making a decent salary pay for himself? So here's Tocqueville's point, that what breeds discontent is not poverty, but actually a relatively well-fed but discontented guy who's miserable not because he doesn't have enough, but because he is perpetually wanting more, and wanting more very often, at least in the case of the left, at the expense of someone else.